So yeah, I had the opportunity to talk to a few of them, a few of you, and I'm very happy that you're here. I was preparing for this trip because there's a bet that I may get frozen here. But you know, I was very pleased that you changed the weather for me to be here. Still cold, but I think it was better than a few days, and will be better than probably next week. Right? That's what I'm living. So I want to share with you a few slides of, I feel like a virtual fence here. I cannot move. But of our experience. I'm from Chihuahua, Mexico. We've been many generations in northern Mexico. Chihuahua borders Texas and New Mexico. Chihuahua is more similar to New Mexico. Forests, grasslands, deserts, and I'm at the bottom, but it's a high desert. My ranch is 4,500 feet, and then it goes to all the way more on the forest, it goes to 7,000, 8,000 feet. I'm not sure if you have places here in North Dakota that are like very high. Montana, yes, right? But no north, okay, sounds good. And this is my third time in North Dakota. First time in winter. But yeah, once Gabe Brown, probably you know Gabe Brown, he went down there and he was so excited about what he saw that he invited us to visit his ranch. So I want to start with this project that we got in central Mexico. Everybody knows what tequila is? Good? Well, that's where tequila is coming from the agave. But this guy in central Mexico, near Guadalajara, he took Soil Health Academy training, and he started understanding the concepts, and he wanted to do something different in central Mexico. Because the problem we have right now is that there's so much demand for tequila worldwide that tequila has become very industrialized, very monoculture, full of chemicals. They seal the soil, as you can see there, right? They don't even consider like, oh, how can I plant the agave in such a way that I prevent? Because remember that the agave is planted like in hills. And then when it rains, that area got about 40 inches of rain per year. I mean, for me, that's a lot because I only got like 8. Well, imagine how far we have gone with all this sealing the soil and all that stuff, that there's already people irrigating the agave. That is like insane, folks. But well, going back to this project, that guy who actually wanted to do things different, he said, okay, help me here. So we went down there to actually help him with just livestock. I mean, that's how we started, with just livestock. I mean, sometimes we actually do not see or do not recognize the potential of livestock that is working in sync with nature. And why am I saying livestock and not only cattle? Because in this project, we use horses, donkeys, and sheep. I mean, we can use pretty much any livestock, right? So that's a different picture. I just want you to keep in mind that this is not the place that we start working on. This is a neighboring place. So these pictures that I'm showing you, that's how we grow agave in 99% for tequila, right? Now, there's some boycott. There's some people that don't want to buy tequila because they are feeling the pain. I mean, of the environmental pain. But that picture was taken next to the plantation we're working on. So look at the difference. Look. Yeah. Look at the drastic difference. And that only took 2 years, folks. So many people ask us, but what do you do before? Well, we just rested the place. Because with 40 inches, something's going to come up. But then they have this technical guy who graduated from university, and he was completely like opposed to everything. Like I remember when I told him, why don't you plant the agave on the same level, you know? So for livestock will be easier to walk among. And he said, no, because the agave is gonna get fungus because it's gonna get full of water there on the terraces. Well, I told him, if we got water standing there, we're not doing a good job. Because we're doing a good job, that water needs to get infiltrated. So we've been changing that guy, still working for that company, but we'll be changing his mindset. As we always say, this was not the most compacted soil. The most compacted soil is between our ears. Right? Or raise your hand who doesn't agree with that. So that's the results after 2 years. Now what we're seeing is also nature trying to help us here. Because now you have those insects that predate on other insects. Yeah, you're familiar with both of them, right? Probably you have them here. Now we're letting nature take over. That is the whole idea, folks. We need to be a bit more lazy and let nature actually do the most work. Let nature and the cows do the most work for us. And now this is a different view, but you can see like multiple species there. So he was full-fledged. He wanted to see results faster. Now he's been going so fast. Obviously, it's like a group of people, also investors. Now they came up with this first bottle of Regen tequila in the world. So that is pretty cool. I just wanted to show you this because you can see how powerful is livestock. No seeding, no cover crops, just letting the land rest and then apply livestock. And then rest, apply livestock. Obviously the livestock is controlled by electric fence, polywire, but that was the only ingredient. Now, I have some advantage. You may think that you have advantage because you're in your area, but you've never been there. So I come up with a lot of small lies. Now, let's go back to where our ranch is, which is on that red dot. I'm actually straight, like 100 miles from the border. I'm very lucky I don't have problems that are very common in the border between Mexico and the US, a lot of problems. Probably you're already aware of that. But we're in the middle of nowhere, so that's still a peaceful place. And that's actually way more challenging because it used to have 12 inches of rain per year. Now it's going down. The last 2 years, we have 4 and 3. 4 inches and then 3 inches. I think we broke a 80-year record there. I don't like to break those records. And then just to give you an idea of how the Chihuahuan Desert looks like, well, it's looked like that. Very dry. This film was pretty much never in properties. You can see soil degraded, even with the very little rain, soil degraded, unproductive, hopeless land. Something very important we need to keep in mind, folks, is what is the historical ecological context. What happened 100 years ago? What happened 200 years ago? Because I can tell you that, for example, working with the California government, I don't want to pick California, but, well, we had that particular experience. And they say, oh, you're saying that you're going to put cows on the desert? Yeah. No, we need to protect the biograss. Okay, that's where we're missing. Like, okay, hold on. The biograss or the crust in the soil is there because that's nature's last resource to protect whatever is under that, to protect it from wind, from... So that's why it's so important to learn a little bit of the history of the place. So this big gully is on my way to the ranch. I pass along. But what is interesting about this gully is this layer of topsoil, carbon. Was that created by a woody plant? No way. Was that created by an annual plant? No way. So that really tells me that those places that we are ranching in the Chihuahuan Desert used to be tall grasslands. Just visually, I mean, just seeing that, it gives you a story there. And if you go to many places in the US, Western US, you're gonna see that if you cannot make a hole. But not only what we see is actually recorded, written by a couple of priests, Spanish priests, that were trying to find a way from Santa Fe to California, and they passed by nearby the Four Corners, Salt Lake. They have on that book, they said that they had never seen such a beautiful, lush, tall grasses in the whole New Spain. And New Spain went from almost Central America all the way to almost Montana. Mm-hmm. So think about, when you think about Salt Lake, you say, well, it's a desert. Well, it was not a desert. And that's where you actually have some faith that you can change things. Questions? Question? Yes. How do they get so degraded? Well, the answer is because we did not understand how nature works. I think it's a bit more like we try to dominate. We try to think that we're smarter than nature. Obviously, the arrival of the barbed wire fence stopped the movement of the cows. And also, we actually got rid of a lot of the bison that used to be here. My personal opinion, when they tell us that there used to be 100 million bison, I think they're lying to us. Because what a coincidence that the whole inventory of cattle is about what the bison used to be. I think from what I know now, at least there probably would be 300 or 400 million bison. So imagine what those big herds used to do with the land, plus all the wildlife that used to be other wildlife. So for me, the problem is when you stop the movement, you stick those animals, and then we don't have enough animals, actually. If we have something like a magic and say, you know, guys, suddenly all the Western ranchers are so knowledgeable that they're going to apply regen practices to restore. You know what would be the first problem? It wouldn't even be money. It wouldn't be, we don't have enough cattle to regenerate the Western US. Did I answer your question? Sometimes I start with something and end up with something else. You're gonna start noticing that. So this is a map that is more recent map, because I don't know if you saw the date of the Spaniards. They were 1776. This is 1850s. But this was done by the government of Mexico on every state. And if you see here, it says that it was a beautiful climate. Why? Because right now, my ranch, which is a 30,000 acre ranch, I probably have only 35% covered with thick grasslands. And that's enough for my ranch to have 5-degree cooler in summer than neighboring ranches. You create that big ball of heat, you know? And then if you cover with perennial thick grasslands, then you will change the climate. You're going to create a microclimate. 5-degree difference is huge, folks. Now, the thing is, now 2 of my neighbors are on board, which I think is going to improve the whole thing. The other thing that it says is the kind of wildlife that we used to have. We used to have grizzly bears. Grizzly bears were in Chihuahua until the 70s. Wolves and everything that you can, turkeys. But two animals that were important for me is the otters and beavers were all across the state. What does that mean? That means that we have water everywhere. We have springs, we have creeks, perennial creeks, and so on. So that actually tells you how much degradation has happened in the last few hundred years. Now, going now back to my ranch, that is a picture when it rains, which lately hasn't rained that much. But also, that's a picture when it snows. When I was like 30 years ago, we used to have snow every year, even in the desert, on the bottom of the Chihuahua. Now, we don't have snow like every other year or every third year. On the mountain range, Chihuahua, yeah, we got snow every year, but not in my place anymore. Now, this is a rainfall pattern. Pretty much, we need to make sure that we take advantage of the water on those 3 months. So at the end of the growing season, we make sure that we have more grass than cattle in order to take the cattle, livestock, all the way until the next 18 months. We're giving a rest period for paddocks or pastures for 18 months because it's getting more complicated. It's getting more complicated. I mean, it's getting like more erratic rains, less rain. So we want to make sure that there's always grass in front of the cows for a long time. And this is, I can't remember his name, but he actually is pretty good at analyzing satellite data. And he told me, do you want to know the rainfall in your ranch on the last 40 years? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And we haven't really kept track on the first 20 years, but I kept track on the last 20 years. And this is pretty accurate, this. So you can see this, that the rainfall is just going down. Half of this time, my dad had the ranch, and I had the other half. So my ranch said, oh, we had terrible droughts. Okay, his droughts were like 8 inches. I told my dad, well, give me those 8 inches. That would be cool for me. My droughts are like 6 inches, 5 inches, and now 3 and 4 inches. So the question is, folks, how can we keep doing what we love to do with less rain? That is the question, right? Because before, with 8 inches, we have to destock almost completely the ranch. And then we spend a lot of money supplementing during the non-growing season. Right now, if I get 6 inches of rain, then I don't have to supplement anything, only sea salt, and I can even run stockers for a few months. So that's really what made a big difference at the ranch. So this is kind of the animal impact that we do at the ranch. When I joined the ranch, my dad had 150 cows at the ranch. It was going down. Because remember, folks, if any of you tells me, well, Alejandro, I'm about the same as 10 years ago, I have to tell you that probably you're lying to me. Because we work with nature, and nature is so complex that whatever your management is taking you forward or backwards. You cannot stand still there. It will depend on your management. Right? So it's up to us, right? Whether we start going forward. I mean, and I'm not saying that the whole ranch is going to go forward. That's why we need to be smart into where we put the money. Because for me, the most important thing, and we can talk about that tomorrow more in detail, is not save the world. We first need to save the ranchers. And when I go to a ranch, the first thing I ask the rancher is, show me your best pastures. I don't want to see the most degraded ones. We will not even care about those ones. Why? Because I need the rancher to see results next year. I mean, ask me what I did. Exactly the opposite. Because our human nature tell us, oh, that's an ugly place. We need to fix that. When here you have grasses, maybe 20 different grasses, maybe 10, and you say, no, but we need to fix that. We need to fix that background. No. Forget about that, folks. This is all about getting results, because all of us have someone else other than us. Your wife, your husband, your kids, your parents, your partners. And if we put the money on the bare spot, the most degraded, oh my God, you're taking a big risk. Because it's going to take a while, and then the money is already there. I was in a ranch in Oregon where I asked this guy, okay, show me your best pastures. Well, we have a riparian area here with a creek running here all year. Okay, that's where you're going to start. So what should I do? Because every time you go and visit a ranch, the very basic question is, okay, that is nice, what you said, but what should I do tomorrow? Well, this is your homework. We visited those best spots, for example, that particular ranch in Oregon. You're gonna fence it, you're gonna build small paddocks, so you're gonna move daily along the creek. No need to develop water. The creek, that riparian area looked good, but not like outstanding, because it did not have animal impact. And I have seen in the US that we love to fence riparian areas. And I understand why the government has done that. Because on continuous grazing, you ended up destroying the whole creek. But with this kind of grazing, you will improve the creek. You will improve the riparian area. And then that guy, just for 20 days, go on small paddocks every day. You may be asking, well, what is the size of those paddocks? Well, you need to be there. You need to be there just to actually, like, estimating the size of the paddock, and then you're going to build based on what you saw in the afternoon, and then the next day until you get a feeling on that particular area, what was the size of the paddock for one day. And that was enough for that guy to actually believe on what he needs to be done in other areas. But the ranches, the rangeland always need to be prioritized from the best to the worst. Don't start on the worst. I mean, if you're gonna take one takeaway today, that is the takeaway. Okay? When we start this, we did not seed anything, folks. And these are native grasses that were there. You know why we never saw those grasses? The main reason? We were grazing multiple times per year. That grass, which is called the sprangletop, green sprangletop, it needs at least a year of rest. So when you're grazing multiple times a year, what you're doing is you may keep the grasses you already have, but the name of the game here is, how do I go from 20 grasses to 100 grasses? What do I need to do? Well, you need to do more animal impact, but you need to combine that with a longer rest period. And I believe, folks, that in the Western US, including your state, probably a few exceptions, probably like this northeast Washington, which is more like a different forest. But most of us need at least 1 year of rest. Well, obviously with animal impact. So we were able to grow this grass, which we never believed that. See, if you go and read the books about this grass or the profile, it will tell you need 17 inches of rain to grow it. You know, we can grow it with 6 inches. That's why a lot of research we have, is useless. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, at least. Yeah. Yeah, all that, I don't know where it cuts, but an area that doesn't have much rain and is seasonal, it's going to be the same. I think I was talking to a rancher here. Yeah, he gives 14 months. Where is 14 months, right? Yeah. I mean, and I think we got in sync in one thing. The main important, one of the most important things on giving a long rest period is because you want to promote more diversity of plants, right? Because what happened when you have more diversity? What happened? You became more resilient. It's like the cover crops, right? Why would I plant cover crops? They're gonna take my water. Well, it doesn't work that way. The more diversity you have, obviously you struggle more with warm season grasses. I struggle more with cool season grasses because of the latitude, right? But that is one of the main things. The other very important thing on long rest periods is you always want to have grass in front of the cows, like a good quality diverse grasslands. I used to rotate 3 times per year. And then I reached a plateau. Diversity never grow more than 10 or 15 different grasses, and that's when I started extending, slowly but extending. Now you may say, yeah, well, but that's a crazy, I mean, you're gonna hear a lot of crazy things. But remember that I have 2 kinds of neighbors. The one that think that I'm crazy and the one that know that I'm crazy. And they're getting crazy as well, because I have 2 neighbors that took them 10 years to move, but now they're on board, which is great. I mean, once you get your neighbors on board, oh my God, that is fascinating. Yes?
How do you do with the lignified grass that's been there for a year?
Nothing? I mean, with lignified grass? Huh? Well, you have 2 options, or both. We're gonna discuss that tomorrow, but let me give you a brief. Selection. There will be cows that will do well with more lignified. Well, let's add another option there, another way to deal with that. Diversity. Compare your grasses here. Your grasses are strong here. I can tell you that. I mean, even though if you don't have like this great management, but the grasses are strong here. We share the same grasses, actually. Are you familiar with the grama grasses? Grama? Blue grama? Well, we have blue grama there as well. Are you familiar with side oats? We have side oats there. I remember when Gabe came down to my ranch and he said, well, we have the same grasses, but yours are taller. Yeah, obviously mine are taller because they have a longer growing season, right? But they're the same grasses. But we were with a guy, a different context, but the same principle. We were with a guy in Venezuela. And in Venezuela, they use the optimal point. The optimal point means that the grasses, when they get into bud stage, when they're forming the seed, they have a good balance between protein and energy. That's great. So they always timing that, which is very difficult for us in a big range, right, to time that. I mean, here, everything just comes at once. They were having rest periods of 30 days, between 20 and 30 days, to prevent the grasses from getting lignified. Imagine those kind of grasses. Those are horrible. They're like a fine wood. You know, he did a try. He's a doctor, like a more science. He likes science. And he did a trial, weighing the heifers every day. This first trial, 30 days. The grass keep preventing lignification, right? They are 70 days. The heifers did better on 70 days with lignified grass than on 30 days with the optimal point. Why? Because when you go to that 75-day rest, you can see more diversity, legumes, forbs. That's what the long rest periods do. I mean, they promote more diversity. So you're allowing the cow to select energy and protein in a simplified form, right? They select for many things, but in a simplified form. So the name here, the key here is for you to promote diversity. Diversity of perennial grasses, but also forbs. And let me be honest with you guys, I don't want to be a grass farmer anymore. I better be a forb farmer. Because what we call grasslands in North America, there were no grasslands. They were mostly forb lands. Why don't we have more forbs in our grasslands? Why, guys? I want to ask you, why we don't have more forbs? These flowering herbs that are very good for cattle, right? Because they need a better water cycle. They don't grow because there's not such a great water cycle. Or their period is very short, maybe right after right in the spring. So it's diversity, selection, diversity, and if neither of those work, well, you work for the majority of the cows. You shouldn't be working for 10% of the cows. Let's say we look at a herd, and then 10%, 5% of the cows are struggling. What do we usually do? Oh, well, let's supplement all of them. Oh, let's do this. No, that's why we always keep a threshold, saying if at any point that threshold is more than 2, 3, 4, 5%, everybody needs to decide that percentage. Then I change my management. I need to supplement, I need to make the paddocks bigger, and so on. But if there are a few ones, that is a selection issue. Did I answer your question? Yeah? Okay. It's diversity. Is diversity the key component here? Not to be worried about lignified. And if I tell you, folks, that I have Hereford cattle or Angus cattle, I may be lying to you. Even if I have Hereford, or because I will have my ranch name, and then you put the breed. Because I'm selecting for my management, my land, you gotta end up just having what is gonna work for you there. And that is done through selection and culling. How are we doing with time? I'm good? How much more time do I have? 10 p.m.? They say you like to go late for a drink or something, like in Mexico. Yeah? Okay. Well, I know you're the biggest drinkers in the US, right? Oh, it's cold. It's cold. You have an excuse. So they used to be our winters, folks, like 10 years ago. Obviously, we got a supplement there. The grass was oxidized. Remember, we can see the grass in 3 colors: green, gold or yellow, and gray. Okay, gold and green is okay. Gray is not okay. I know there are some folks here from the government. I'm sorry, but I have to tell this. I have to tell you this. That CRP program, correct me if I'm wrong, but you go from farmland to put some grasslands, right? You see that. And then you say, you're gonna touch this for 10 years? Oh my God. I was in Oregon like 2 months ago, and I saw that CRP ground. It was whole oxidized. I think we need to observe and act based on what we observe, because this is not about formulas, guys. This is all about doing what needs to be done from whatever you see. And there's plenty of wildlife. That's another dream. That's another nonsense dream. People trying to rewild North America or other Europe with wildlife. That will never happen. We need livestock. Well, those used to be, I cannot deviate from the topic. Former winters. Now, these are winters nowadays. We were able to fix the water cycle. Now we're growing different grasses, and the same grasses also change as well. We were able to extend the green season. I'm not trying to tell you guys that we have green grasses this tall year round. What happened is that the grasses stop getting oxidized. Why do the grasses get oxidized, guys? Why do they get oxidized? You have seen oxidized grasses, right? For sure here. Well, one thing is because of the lack of grazing, lack of animal impact. And the other thing is because probably the soils are very compacted, so they don't have oxygen. I mean, they don't have air in the soil, so they tend to oxidize very quickly. The allelopathic effect of some plants. Have any of you heard about the allelopathic effect? So some plants prevent others from growing. Well, because we've been working with the bird conservancy organizations in the US for many years, more than a decade. Actually, they are now in my ranch at this moment, doing transects. And American Bird Conservancy of the Rockies, the Nature Conservancy, Audubon. When they went to my ranch the first time, they say, oh, we got a great product that's gonna get rid of that creosote because that's preventing you from growing grass. I was very happy because now I was not any longer responsible for that. Those were responsible for my misery. That's pretty cool to say, right? Hey, I told that guy, you know, if you're gonna come to my ranch, you're gonna bring something that promotes lives, not kill life. Agree? Agree. And, well, we grow grass. What happened with that allelopathic effect? Probably the grass never read the books. The message here, folks, is work for what you want. Forget about, you give me a name, shoya cactus, creosote, mesquite, juniper. They are not invading us. That is a reflection of our management. If you think for a moment, folks, and we change our chip or microprocessor, I don't know how, whatever is inside, and we think, what is nature trying to tell me and how nature is trying to help me, well, that's gonna change a lot. Was it good to have that plant there? Creosote, what do you think? Was it good? Or it would be better to have removed all that with chemicals? For me, it was great because that plant was still doing photosynthesis on a very primitive way. But nature was trying to help me because remember, nature is always trying to cover the soil with something. A shoya cactus, a juniper, something. Why do we have so many junipers in some places? I don't know about here in North Dakota, but Oregon. Because we have compacted soils. That's why. What do we do? Oh, let's kill them all. This is kind of fence comparison between the lower part is my ranch. That other side, the outer part or the upper, is a neighboring ranch. Spring, we didn't have, the last time it rained was like 9 months ago. Obviously, we did a very aggressive grazing, kind of as much as we could, as long as the cows were happy. And see how our grasses respond pretty much with no rain in winter. And my neighbor grasses were still dormant. Well, I'm very nice to say dormant. They are dying, actually. Because when you see a gray grass, that grass is dying. And this is the same spot. Right side, my ranch. Left side, my neighbor's ranch. You know, Sometimes we have a problem with institutions. Because when they come here and say this one and this one, they may tell this rancher, you need to lower the numbers. That is the only thing that they come out to their mind. The problem is the stocking rate. Well, here I'm running 3 times more cattle per acre than my neighbor. But you know what happened here? You need to think. Here, oh, I give you a straight answer, lower your numbers. And they ended up breaking the rancher. Look at this. I was driving towards my ranch, the middle of the summer, probably with so far 7 inches of rain, year to date. Passed by my neighbor, few pastures, cattle stay 1 month there, on every pasture, 1-2 months. Look at the difference. My ranch at that point had probably more than 300 paddocks, more herd defect, and obviously long rest periods. Perhaps the rest periods were the same, but the difference was animal impact here. Remember, I don't have any irrigation. It's just the animal impact there. We as ranchers are pretty bad at kind of taking pictures, at least me, like following through. But finally, back in 2015, I started taking pictures of the same spot. Same spot that at that time it was bare spot. So you can see the bare spot here, and that is the reference point. And then weeds. Who likes weeds here? Raise your hand. Don't be afraid. Wow, the majority. See, I'm a politician. The majority likes weeds. Why do we like weeds? I mean, what is the point of weeds? The point, if you see the root system of a weed is a taproot, right? Taprooted. It's very strong. If you have weeds, let me tell you, it's what you really need at that point. Now, some people even get concerned about saying, well, with your long rest periods, and then you let the weeds put a lot of seed, is going to pretty much spread all over the ranch. Well, it doesn't work that way, folks. It's the conditions you create in the soil what's going to come up. Let me tell you, there was a point at the ranch in a kind of fertile but very degraded spot at the ranch, like a canyon, like a valley, where after we apply animal impact, pigweed, you're familiar with pigweed? Well, that pigweed on that spot grew, I was riding my horse, it was like this. Miles of pigweed. I couldn't even see anything, not even much less the cattle. It was this thick, folks. And I was concerned, really, because it was already mature and millions of seeds were there. But it was natural response. We had never seen that before until we apply animal impact. I was concerned because I couldn't see, and then my foreman said, no, they're gonna actually break them and put it in the soil, and you had the huge root system. We never seen again pigweeds there. It was a one-time event, probably good rains, but what happened? It got covered by grasses. And think about it, how many millions of seeds you have there? Why? Because we changed the soil conditions to grow something better. So when I tell ranchers, the first thing you need to see is more weeds on those bare spots. Guys, we cannot go from bare ground to 7 feet tall grasses. No way. I have invited some of my friends, and they saw that green spangle top, and they start grabbing the seeds and put it in their pockets. And I start kind of playing with them, saying, well, but it cost me to put that. And they say, oh, no, you can take them. But they're still dreaming about putting those seeds. Well, it won't work, because we need to create the conditions for that grass to thrive. That's why we are patient enough to actually wait and then for nature to take over from bare ground to weeds, annuals, annual grasses, then short perennials until you start getting the water cycle better and then you start growing better things. Then 3 years after, then we had the grasses. See, that's what I was telling you guys, that a lot of people talk about overgrazing. At least in some parts, well, this is nearby my ranch. Obviously, that was overgrazing, right, the problem. But I have seen in many places, mostly more prevalent in the South, in the US Southwest, where most grasses nowadays are dying because of the lack of grazing. Because we are getting to this vicious cycle where we say, okay, less rain, less grass, less cattle, and then the grass is not being grazed or impacted by animals, and the grass is dying that way. So we need to start talking about the lack of animal impact, not only overgrazing. Like this I-25 in New Mexico, you can see this side of the fence was overgrazed, and this side is never been grazed. And I mean, this is already dead, and this is going to die. So at some point, we need to graze the grasses because they co-evolve with the grazers, with the bison and the elk and so on. It's just us dreaming about getting rid of all the cattle, getting rid of all the fences, and putting bison, and getting rid of all the ranchers, and put the bison. I think those guys are dreaming. I don't think they know what they are talking about. Well, I told you this quote. We also, folks, need to think about raising the biodiversity. 10 years ago, when we start changing from 50 pastures to 350 electric fence paddocks, and then that we can subdivide it into as many as we want with polywire. Like in 2022, we ended up building 1,000 paddocks. Now you may say, well, yeah, but you have a lot of cheap labor in Mexico. Well, I try to simplify the management. I only have the foreman and a cowboy. That's it. One tractor, one small truck. I don't want to complicate things. Because remember that the most complicated thing in the cattle business, what is it? To keep it simple. That is the most complicated thing. How can we keep simple the cattle business? But well, the bird guys, I'm not saying that I'm counting the grasses. I'm just saying that it seems to be more diversity. But they came to the ranch 10 years ago and they counted 20 different grasses. The last count that they made, we had now over 80 different grasses. And I was telling you why I don't want to be a grass farmer. Because I understand now that once I fix or establish these thick grasslands, healthy grasslands, nature is going to reward me with forbs. Like this verse from the Bible. The promised land of milk and honey. What do you need to produce milk and honey? Anyone? Flowers, right. Have you, any of you, used the refractometer to measure the Brix? Obviously, it's more common on grapes and agave and all that stuff, right? But we also use it to measure the grasses and forbs. Try to get a forb at the same time as a grass, and the forbs will always beat the grasses. They have high energy, high protein. But while we need to have more forbs, we have to have a better water cycle. And how we get a better water cycle, we need to establish more perennial grasses. Annual grasses are not going to help us. I mean, they're not, because remember, if I'm telling you that the only thing that I give at the ranch that I provide to my cows is sea salt, it's because I have something green during the non-growing season, during the winter. Because cows cannot survive with no green. I mean, gotta be a little bit of green at the bottom of the grass with some yellow grass. So to produce milk, you need energy. That's forbs. To produce honey, you need flowers. That's forbs as well. Like that. I mean, you can see here, for example, the side oats and other tall grasses. I think this is called in the US Arizona cotton top. But we have this very good forb that only grows where you have well-established grasses. And when I turn in my cows into a pasture where there's forbs, they're gonna go for the forbs first. Have you seen that? When you open the gate and the cows go and look for what to eat first, obviously they try to eat the cream. They always go for the forbs first. And now they start grazing the grass. So this is what I'm trying to tell you when we have a place that is like a good combination of forbs and grasses. I would love to see my ranch, the whole ranch that way, but it's a work in progress. It's just a few spots like that. But that is my goal. And then not only diversity of grasses, but diversity of grazers. Because if I met you in a like they say, elevator pitch, like, okay, tell me what you do. I'm trying to use livestock in sync with nature. So what nature is doing. What nature used to do, for example, on the bison migrations. If we think that the bison, the same in Africa, because in Africa, when these buffaloes and all that stuff migrate, they migrate one way and return in a different way. So if the bison used to do that, going south one way and north the other way, think about what was the rest period there? What was the animal impact? What was the rest period? Wow, that's a long rest period, right? But that's why we combine trying to mimic what that do. And I can bet that it was not only bison, it was elk, it was a lot of deer. And that's what we're trying to do at the ranch with the donkeys. We have a small percentage, certain percentage of donkeys as well, and they are moved with the cows, or they sometimes get behind the cows. Because they can take a lot of stuff that the cows will not eat, stems and bark, and they're pretty crazy folks. I prefer to have something converted into manure than just standing there. See, like, they even eat that crazy donkeys. So some indicators. I mean, I want to get this too complex. Like saying, yeah, you have to run like a soil test to see the microbiology, which is, it would be nice, but just visually, what we do have. This picture was taken on the same day, folks, in winter. And I was kind of playing hardball with some experts on grasses, and I asked them, can you tell me what kind of grasses are these? Well, this is tobosa. How about this? No, we don't know what is that. Well, it's the same grass, folks, just different management. What do you see there? The right side is my ranch, the left side is a property nearby my ranch. What you see there is, as you improve the water cycle and the microbiology is gonna grow, the microherd, that's what I call it, you need bigger solar panels. So automatically, your grasses are going to change in form. They're gonna go down, and they're gonna have more leaf to stem ratio, a higher ratio. The same grass. Now, is there any green here? No way. Is there any green here? Yeah, at the bottom there's green. That's how we've been able to achieve providing minimal or no inputs to the cows year-round with the same grasses. And then I pulled those grasses from the previous picture. Look, this grass had this root system. Same grass, different management. It's struggling to survive. The oxidized, the gray grass. My grass, I had to cut it because the root system was like 2 feet. Not even donkeys can pull it out. So it makes a big difference, folks, the way you manage your land. Well, we talk about the refractometer. And this is nice to know because as you improve the soil and the microbiology, your grasses are going to have more sugar. And then as you improve the bricks, you improve the daily gains. I mean, everything is going to be better. How about wood encroachment? Look at these examples, folks. Creosote. We're killing creosote. We did not spray that. We just let the grass take over, and the grasses will change. The water cycle will change probably the bacterial to fungus ratio. And I don't know what's going on, but we're killing those, quotes, invasive species. We're killing the mesquite. Oh my God, this is so controversial where I am from. Because sometimes the mesquite is the only thing that ranchers have. The pods, the cows eat the pods of the mesquite, the beans, and they provide shade. And they tell me, but Alex, I'm Alex in Mexico, Alejandro here, okay? So, Alex, but what are you going to be doing without shade? You need shade. Well, nature is so perfect on their timing that when you are on top of those grasslands in summer, well, really it is some, but it's never really the same. We measure the temperature on those grasslands and it's 75 Fahrenheit. You go to the neighbor bare ground, it's 160 on the same day, same time. Obviously, if you have bare ground, yeah, you need shade. And remember, there used to be original native trees there. I mean, everything is native, but there used to be different trees, like a wild olive, or even some kind of yuccas, like a very thin yuccas, yucca, but like a palms. But they were related to the grasslands. When we get rid of the grasslands, they die. So they're gonna take a few decades to come back. So sometimes they may say, well, that is kind of crazy on the grasslands. Well, yeah, but we're at that point in time. See, even big mesquites are dying, and even bigger mesquites are dying. We have mesquites like this that my dad loved. They are dying as well because the grass is taking over. They have no place anymore. Nature decided, we don't need you anymore. How about fires? That is pretty relevant, right? What we're doing, what we have here. I mean, the things that are going on. So there's a study of the NASA that correlates the number of fires, obviously I'm talking about natural fires, with the moisture in the soil. The drier the soil, the more fires you're gonna get, the more lighting. What is the problem with we have put so much time on protecting the forests, folks, the forests, that I think we have overprotected the forests. Have you been in places where, even I saw it in Oregon, you cannot even walk in the forest? They are so close to each other and tiny and dying because of a beetle. Nature is correcting that you can't even walk. That's the perfect storm for a terrible fire. And remember, nature has a lot of tools. And one tool nature has to correct things is fire. So what we have right now is these dry storms. What is a dry storm? You get the lighting, but you don't get the rain. Because nature is trying to correct something that we did not manage well. How do we correct that? Livestock. We need to put livestock into the forests because trees are really not that great at holding water. It's grasses, the ones that are actually fix pretty well the water cycle. Look at this, folks. This guy is managing his land with livestock. This is protected forest. Tell me what's going to happen with when you got a lighting. This is going to be horrible. So this is a ranch in Chihuahua, on the high mountain range of Chihuahua. It's like 8,000 feet. It's the highest regen rancher we have in Chihuahua, like 8,000 feet tall. And look what he's doing. He's growing grasses among the forest. That's how we want to see our forest. We want to see forests with so thick and nothing below. Because you know what's going to happen? Nature's going to fix that. Look what he's doing in his ranch. He's killing the juniper with the grasslands. The same way I killed the mesquite, he's killing the juniper. And what is left? The original evergreens, pines. Look, he's killing all the junipers. Just with management. Are you familiar with juniper? Yeah? You know juniper? You grow juniper here, right? Okay. That's what I wanted to include, that picture. So let me tell you, we had the same plants. You're familiar with ponderosa pine? Well, we have it in Chihuahua as well. It's not like suddenly you cross the wall and everything changes. No way, Jose. No, sorry, say that again. They are. The way we manage cattle, we promoted more perennial grasses, and most likely, well, no, they improved the water cycle, open up the soils, create more aggregation, better infiltration, and that's what killed the juniper. Same way that I did it in my ranch, but with mesquite. Yep, it's just cattle. I mean, we did not spray them. In Mexico, usually we don't spray anything because the government doesn't help us at all, and we're not going to be spending our money with spraying. Yeah. I'll let you read that. How many? 2 minutes. I thought you were saying like peace and love. Okay, let me see what else. This is the last slide, because to be continued. Otherwise, they may say, well, we got too much. We're not coming tomorrow. So I was in India, and then I met a German delegation. And you know, on those UN events, oh my God. Well, they're changing, but very slow. We are the worst enemy of the world. Methane. Cattle are destroying everything. So when I tell this delegation, hey, can I share with you? Who are you? Well, I'm a cattle rancher. No, they said. Cattle are taking this many liters to produce 1 kilo of beef. Well, but they ended up giving me the opportunity to give them like a briefing. So I told them, we measure the water infiltration on the left side, on bare ground, and it gives us just that we can infiltrate 2 inches of rain per hour. On the right side, where we've been managing more intensively, more animal impact, and so on, that table told us that we can infiltrate 18 inches per hour. We don't even get half of that, but well, we're ready to infiltrate all the water. If you extrapolate that difference between 2 and 18 and multiply that to our 30,000 acre ranch, we could meet the water needs for 100,000 people for a full year. So we're very linear in our thinking. Oh, it takes some matter. That is a great service we can provide to the community. Thank you.